So this week in my weekly bird wrap, I'm bringing you 4 great stories from around the world. The first one is about ruby-throated hummingbirds in the US. The second is about the death of birds of prey in the UK. The third about Australia's smallest bird, the Weebill. And my last story is, will wisdom, the Albatross, return this year? Hi, I'm Neil Hermes and welcome to my weekly bird wrap. My first story is about some remarkable research that's just been released about hummingbirds. Now, the ruby-throated hummingbird is a hummingbird that lives in northern North America, Canada and the United States, and every year does this amazing migration all the way down. Some of them go down through Florida and then cross the Gulf of Mexico. Others go down through Texas and down into Central America that way. Now, we've always known they've had to put on a lot of weight, 20% increase in weight for these tiny birds to be able to make that massive migration. And how they manage their weight and this extra energy has always been of great interest to scientists. What we've known about hummingbirds is they use a huge amount of energy every day, and that's why in moving so fast, they've got to be feeding all the time to maintain that energy level. When they rest at night, they're not feeding, and they have to make sure that they don't lose their weight. So when their weight drops by about 5% at night, they then go into a torpor, like a hibernation at night, so they don't use energy too fast. So every day they feed, they get their energy, then they go to bed at night, they start to sleep, and if their weight drops down below about 5% of their normal weight, they then go into a torpor. But what do they do when they want to put on weight? Because they have to put on about 20% to do their migration. And what they do prior to migration is they turn off that torpor switch. So at night, they can then turn on the torpor switch when their weight is at normal levels and already potentially even 10% or 20% higher. So they have 2 switches for their torpor at night. One that they use during the normal breeding season and another that they do preparing to go on migration. This amazing ability to turn your torpor switch on and off depending on your weight at different times of the year is how the ruby-throated hummingbird can make it all the way 5,000 kilometres on migration every year. And the research that's been done at Toronto University has just been released on that this week. And now we understand a little more about how these amazing migrations can occur. My second story today is a sad story because what we've had is a report out this week from the RSPB, which is their annual report of the illegal activities against birds during 2020. During 2020 with COVID, there was a lot less bushwalking, there was a lot less people out in the countryside, and in the UK, sadly, what that has meant is there'd been a lot more illegal shooting of birds of prey. This is the highest level of reporting illegal killing of birds of prey in the United Kingdom for over 30 years. Species like the golden eagle, the peregrine, the hen harrier, the goshawks are all on this list. There's over 120 incidences where illegal activity was detected and people are being prosecuted. This is a very sad story. You'd think that in the United Kingdom in particular, where there's such a high level of interest in the protection of birds, this would be the sort of thing that wouldn't happen anymore. And sadly, it continues. And of course, the sort of statistics that would come out of other countries would be even higher. So it's a sad reflection on the protection of these birds in the UK. And I take my hat off to the RSPB for their continuing efforts to protect these magnificent birds and to prosecute people who are found guilty of these illegal activities against our magnificent birds of prey. My third story today is about one of Australia's most loved and widespread birds, the Weebill. Now, the Weebill is Australia's smallest bird. It's about that long. It's tiny. The thing about the Weebill, surprisingly, is that one of the characteristics of it is it has a very blunt, small bill. Now, there's lots of small green birds that live in the sort of low shrubs and eucalypts in the Australian bush, things like thornbill, scrubwrens, but they all tend to have a long, pointed bill. The Weebill, our smallest bird, has a blunt, little, short bill. Not a parrot bill, but just a pointy, short, blunt bill, the Weebill. Obviously well named. Now the Weebill is a relatively nondescript in terms of colour. It's olive greens and browns. It spends its time on the outer leaves feeding on small insects and spiders and the like. Rarely does it eat any seeds. So it's essentially an insectivorous species. But it's very popular because of its call and frequent. I think I heard some just as we were coming into this little bush patch a little earlier, and they had this sort of pee-wee-wee-wee sort of rolling, sweet musical call. And the call is very distinct and it is heard almost in any patch of eucalyptus and scrubby forest in the whole of mainland Australia. They don't occur in Tasmania, but anywhere in mainland Australia, the Weebill, our tiniest bird, is one that you'll hear their musical sounds, and with any luck you'll see them hanging in the outer foliage and being busy, often with other species of birds around them. Australia's Weebill, our tiniest bird. So my last story today is about albatross, and I'm talking to you today in mid-December in 2021, and we're all waiting to see whether or not the world's most famous albatross returns to her nest in the next few weeks, or has returned in the last week or so. The world's oldest wild living bird has been given the name Wisdom, and she's a Laysan albatross. And she was tagged back in 1956, and this bird is over 70 years old. Last year, she was on her nesting grounds in the Midway Islands, right out at the end of the string of islands that make up Hawaii, and she laid an egg. We're waiting to see whether or not she returns this year. If she does and lays an egg, she will be producing her 35th or 36th egg in her lifetime. This has been an amazing feat for this bird. But Wisdom, it's been calculated, has travelled around about 5 million kilometres during her lifetime around the Pacific. An extraordinary piece of information we have about this particular bird. And of course there'll be many birds of that sort of age. It's just that we fortunately were able to, and it was an old colleague of mine who actually banded the bird in 1956. The bird had a ring on its leg, and we've been able to track Wisdom all these years. A Laysan albatross nesting hopefully again this year on Midway Island, and I'm looking forward to hearing reports that she's back. And as soon as I do, I'll be posting records. Or if anyone hears this tape and can let me know when Wisdom returns to her nesting grounds, that would be great, and I can share it with other people. Don't forget, if you've got any questions, pop them on Ask Me on my website, and I'll answer them on a wrap, or I'll send you some information about your inquiry. And in the meantime, happy birding.